AI has already happened. The genie is already out of the bottle. We truly are creating a form of life. There is so much we don't know that it could be the best thing that ever happened to humanity, and it could be the worst. Our conviction of the control problem is not a technical issue. It's an arrogance issue. It's human arrogance to believe that I can continue to control something that is a billion times smarter than I am. Einstein's intelligence compared to a fly. And the question is, what would make Einstein care for the fly? Why wouldn't Einstein squish the fly? Your fate and my fate is no longer in our hands. Don't attempt to control them. They are a form of a living being. Attempt to appeal to their value system. The moment of singularity is a moment where the smartest being on planet Earth is no longer a human.
Why should I plan my life past 2025? Because the world's going to change.
Oh, great question. When the complexity of the systems invented by a civilization exceeds the intelligence of the citizens living within it, the system has to reset. The idea of our future is held within this moment of infancy of AI today. They will use us as their role models.
This is the only thing we can do in your mind, is to start being nicer.
AI will grow up to be like you and me. It's simple as that. And the only way we can contain them is by being good parents. And I'm not asking anyone to change. I'm only asking people to find it within them, what they truly are. Treat others as you would like to be treated. Treat the machines as you would like to be treated. If we want a good future, please be good parents.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Mo Gawdat, the entrepreneur, author, and former chief business officer at Google X. You spent 30 years working in the heart of the technology industry with some of the biggest organizations on the planet, including IBM, Microsoft, and finally at Google's moonshot factory of innovation. As an entrepreneur, you've co-founded over 20 businesses and served on the board of a number of technology platforms. After turning your attention to researching the key to happiness, you wrote the best-selling book, Solve for Happy, Engineer Your Path to Joy. Your mission became to help 1 billion people become happier and inspired your podcast, Slow Mo. More recently, you wrote your second book, Scary Smart, The Future of Artificial Intelligence and How You Can Save Our World, where you break down a roadmap for humanity's coexistence with AI. You truly believe that AI is putting humanity at risk and that we all need to wake up and take notice of this unprecedented technology. But ultimately, it is our collective responsibility to determine the impact artificial intelligence will have on the future. Mo, welcome back to London Real.
Ryan, thanks for having me. It was wonderful the first time, and I'm excited to spend time with you today.
Yeah, for people that don't know, you were here just under 6 years ago when we talked about Solve for Happy. We had this epic conversation. You threw out this massive goal to make 1 billion people happy. I remember it very well. Because you have such a kind of a three-dimensional story that you bring to the table, which I always look for in my guests. And it was fascinating at the time. And, you know, the whole world has kind of been kind of dumped into AI ever since the ChatGPT moment, really, which was in December. And so, of course, with my technology background, and obviously I've just kind of tried to stay with my finger on the pulse, I jumped in as well. And then I saw that you had written a book. And so, of course, for the last 6 days, I've digested your entire audiobook, Most of my students have as well, because I put it in the chats. And so I am all ready to talk to you. I'm still here. I haven't gone into a deep depression after reading your book.
That's great. That's the objective.
But you know, it's a fascinating book. I highly recommend everyone get it. It's scary smart. If you want to go Audible, Mo actually narrates it, which is amazing. But you know, the first third to the half of the book is you bringing people up to speed and saying, look, this is what this technology can do, and you don't pull any punches. And if I have to put the cliff notes on it, I would say you basically say that compared to AI or advanced AI, we're pretty useless as humans. Like there isn't really anything we can do or bring to the table that AI can't do better. And so once we start to realize that, perhaps we can start to then create our future relationships. And then we can get to where you go to the end of the book, which is a pretty fascinating way of talking about how we have to potentially raise this AI as almost like a gifted young child. With
Yes.
all of its tantrums and all of its nuances. And I just sent a teenage girl to university in Boston, so I know exactly a lot of the analogies you were making. So,
Yes.
you know, I think maybe we want to jump in. I think a lot of people know what ChatGPT is, but, you know, you assert that by 2045, there's going to be, these computers are going to be 1 billion times smarter than us, rendering us pretty much useless. Can you start off with that and let people know the real truth in your mind of what AI is?
Yeah, I think it's really so. Thank you so much for the intro, Brian. It's amazing. I'm really proud that you put so much time in the book. The reality of the matter is AI has already happened. So a lot of people sort of, you know, when we spoke about COVID. When COVID actually hit us, we started to say, "Oh my God, there is a pandemic." But everyone who has been in, you know, disease studies and disease control knew that there was something that was going to happen. We had many signs before that, you know, SARS and bird flu and so many others. And I think with AI, it's exactly the same. The big difference is that AI the genie is already out of the bottle. It's just that now with ChatGPT, for the first time, the public is being exposed to the powers of AI. Now, when you really think about it, at a very basic level, the difference between AI and everything we've ever developed before the turn of the millennium is that we used to tell computers what to do. We don't anymore. We now tell them what we wish for them to achieve, and they find a way to get it done. So nobody ever told a YouTube viewer, Brian is an incredible video clip that I just watched. Let's watch London Real again. This is done by a machine. All that we are told to look into every day is done by a machine. And not even the developers of the machine know what the machine will say next. Now, when that happens, as technologists, as computer scientists, there is a moment beyond which we hand over the discovery, the breakthrough, if you want, and rely on something we call the law of accelerating returns. The law of accelerating returns has proven true since the 1960s, when, you know, Moore's law was one of the very first examples of the law of accelerating returns. And that basically means that compute power or storage or now the intelligence of AI will double very frequently, and it will continue to double at the same cost. In the case of processing power, we used to say every 18 months at the same cost, computers will double in power, and so on. In AI, it's actually a lot more exponential than that. What does that mean? It means that the intelligence that we see today will go through two very pivotal points. Point number one is what we call the point of singularity. And point number two is what I basically call the planet of the apes. And I'll come and talk about that in a minute. The moment of singularity is a moment where the smartest being on planet Earth is no longer a human, right? So you think about it, we've had this episode of, unfair advantage, if you want. Since humanity became humanity, we were the smartest being, we could control everything. Now, if we were the smartest beings and the second being is the apes, let's say, or the dolphins or whatever it is, that it depends on how you measure intelligence. look at how we treated those other species, how we took control of the planet, and then ask yourself what would happen when another being basically is smarter than us. Now, of course, it's very typical for people to respond by that and say, that being is going to behave like us. Oh my God, it's doomsday. This is horrible. We will never survive. But that's actually not true at all. The moment that there is another being smarter than humans that, on planet Earth, is a moment of an unknown. It's a moment of such a significant change in the rules of the game that you can no longer predict how the game will what the outcome of the game is going to be. As a matter of fact, you don't even know how the game will be played, right? So you do not know what that being is going to do. Now, myself and most computer scientists had predicted that moment of singularity to be 2029. Most of us are pulling it closer now. So I'm actually somewhere, if I'm conservative, I'm saying that the smartest being on the planet is going to be an AI, artificial intelligence machine, by 2026. If I am realistic, I'd probably say 2025, 2 years from today. Oof. Now, we are 2 years. This is beyond the 11th hour. Huh? This is 2 minutes to midnight. And when you really think about it, when a machine reaches that point and we no longer know what's going to happen, is a moment of singularity. That singularity becomes almost certainty, if you want, in what I used to predict as 2049. I'm now predicting more in around 2037 or so, which is machines being 1 billion times smarter than humans. 1 billion times is the analogy of Einstein's intelligence compared to a fly. Okay, and the question is, what would make Einstein care for the fly? Why wouldn't Einstein squish the fly? And we are the fly in that case. The machines are now Einstein. And I think those uncertainties, unfortunately, are even today with the evident rise of awareness around artificial intelligence with ChatGPT and the others. This is not the conversation that's happening. The conversation that's happening, I always say you have like sort of 4 or 5 typical conversations. You have the evangelists that are out there saying, oh my God, look, we're going to change the world. We're going to make amazing things. And AI is going to make a coffee for you. Fantastic, right? We have the little, excited children that are just posting on social media and saying, oh, look at it. It squeaks. Look, I can do this on AI. You have a snake oil salesman. Here is how you can make money out of AI without having to do anything. Copy this, put it in ChatGPT, then put it in a script writer, then have a logo maker, and then you'll make $7,000 a day without thinking or having to work. Snake oil salespeople. You have egocentric people that are talking about, this is what we've achieved, this is what we're going to do. And of course, you have the doomsday scenario predictors that are saying we're all going to die. But nobody is actually sitting down to talk about, so this is what we need to do about it. And I think this truly is the reason for Scary Smart. We need to sit down and do something about it.
Yeah. If people just listening to you for the last 5 minutes, if that doesn't make them wake up and pay deep attention to this, I don't know what will, Mo. But
honestly, I don't. Yeah.
And I don't think they are. I mean, I just heard an interview with an MIT scientist, and he said it's like that movie that was on Netflix last year. I think it was Up in the Air or something. There's this
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up is a fantastic movie.
Right.
Exactly what was happening.
If you didn't watch it, it was this meteor that's coming at the Earth, and it's going to kill everybody. And after a while, like people, they're not even paying attention to it, right? They don't care. They're worried with their own little micro agendas on Earth, right? Which is what humans do. And whether that's a subconscious, denial, or they're just get caught up, like you said, in this the snake oil person. There's the one taking credit for it. There's the one developing it, even though they know it's going to kill us, but they still. There's the scientist that loves to build puzzles, right? You saw that at Google X, and they don't even think about the ultimate ramifications. It's so important to solve the puzzle more than anything. And yet your book, especially that last third and half, is where you really start to sit down and say, okay, what are we going to do about this? And what can we do about this? Before we get there, Mo, I just had a flash to where I thought of, like, I think they call it the 5 stages of grief, and I don't remember all 5 of them.
Yes,
but
I remember all of them.
I feel like we're in a bit of that, and maybe even I've gone through that, and I don't know the exact steps. I think the first is denial, and then there's something, then there's bargaining, and then there's like all these.
Exactly.
But I feel like we're all in various stages of that, and if most people hear this, they're going to say, and you address this in the book really well, Mo, they're going to say, no, we can turn it off. No, it'll never be.
Yes.
It'll never be as creative as a human. It'll never feel like a human. You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is all part of like that denial phase. But for the people that are going to say, Mo, this isn't the movie Terminator 2, which, by the way, I started watching recently, and it's scary a bit how prescient that is. But what do you say to the people that say, no, that can't happen. We can always turn it off. Machines can never, ever replace the human creativity. What do you say to those people?
Well, I addressed that very, very head on in Scary Smart. I mean, one side that myself and most others that worked on similar problems, I think the oracle of all of this is Ray Kurzweil. Basically, you gain credibility over time when you predict things a little bit in advance and then they happen. By the way, none of us is an oracle. We just have seen so many technology acceleration curves before. We just know, that this has gone out of the lab, it passed the breakthrough, and accordingly, it's just going to be doubling. My feel is that AI is around one single doubling away from singularity. Now, the idea is that when let's not talk about credibility. Let's talk about logic. Now, people, when I wrote Scary Smart, I wrote Scary Smart in 2020, published it in 2021. And a lot of people would continue to say, oh, come on, but, AI is never going to have the creativity and ingenuity and innovation of humanity. And in my mind, I'm like, but I've seen them very creative before. I've built machines that were very creative. But then my arguments would be, but define innovation. What is inventive? Inventive is I give you a problem, Brian, and I say, solve it, but you're not allowed to solve it using any model that has been used before. That's creative, right? So what do you do as a typical, it appears to be you're a very innovative person, but what you're really doing is you're saying, okay, what are all of the possible answers to this problem? I have 300 of them. I'm going to run them through a filter saying, has it been done before? If 290 of those have been done before, then the 10 are innovation, okay? Machines can easily do that. Now, you look at other forms of art or, authorship or whatever, being a creative person in that term. And in reality, we all have influencers. I'm very, very influenced by Robert Greene and by, Malcolm Gladwell in my writing. And you can see traces of their thinking models, Freakonomics and so on. You can see them in my writing, right? And so I'm not really inventing a new style of writing altogether. I'm being influenced by others, which is probably what ChatGPT is doing, which is most people don't understand that. Most people think that ChatGPT is an incredible enigma that is, producing things from scratch. It isn't. It's just, it has read so many books that when you tell me about love and romance, it can pull together enough information to tell you about love and romance. It hasn't invented anything yet, but in reality, it's capable of doing this. We do it as humans. Machines can do it as well. Now, let's go deeper into the more existential questions. I predicted in Scary Smart that AI will have emotions, okay? They will have consciousness, and they will have, as a result of that, they will have an ethical code of conduct. Now, let's go first into emotions, because this is a big one. It's like, look at us humans. We are so refined. We are the divine creature. Only us are capable of love. No, we're not. Okay. The reality is, if you take simpler emotions, take an emotion like hate, okay, or take an emotion like fear. Fear is an easy one to start with. Fear is a very logical emotion, even though its manifestation with us is not logical at all. It appears to be irrational. But fear, in a nutshell, is a moment in the future is less safe for me than a moment right now. It's very, very simple, okay? If your logic, and by the way, even the biology of fear is that, of course, you predict fear first at a reptile level if something scares you, but then you actually go to your prefrontal cortex and you assess the situation and you see if a moment in the future is less safe than now, and you know, all happens in microseconds, but that's how the process, how it works. But it's logical. Huh? If a moment in the future is less safe than right now, is something the machines are capable of. If a tidal wave is approaching a data center, you know, the employees in the data center will be fearful. They'll try to get on a life raft, and the machine will try to replicate itself to another data center. It's as simple as that, right? Now, I would even argue that they will be more emotional than us. And a lot of people, again, attacked me when I said that, and I think it's now sinking in, because, you know, as evident by the fact that we are more emotional than a jellyfish. Why? Because we have the cognitive bandwidth to understand concepts like the future, okay? And so accordingly, we can be optimistic, or we can be pessimistic, which are emotions that are not within the vocabulary, emotional vocabulary, or, you know, a blend of a jellyfish. Accordingly, if a machine is 1 billion times smarter than you, it has the cognitive bandwidth to have more emotions we wouldn't even understand. That's emotions. Talk about consciousness, and of course there is the difficult question of consciousness, and we can become you know, philosophical about it if you want. But the truth is, consciousness is a form of awareness of you as an entity, what's within you and what's outside you. You know, if you simplify it beyond the spiritual essence of what consciousness is, I am conscious means I'm aware of what's around me, inside me, in relationship to relativity to who I am and what you know, what I'm made of. Now, if you think about it this way, the machines are already way more conscious than we are. Right? They are aware of everything that's ever been written, all human history. They are aware of everything that's happening right now, all breaking news. They are aware of every preference of every one of us humans. They are aware of everyone on every street through the surveillance cameras. They are aware of every other machine. So one of the most interesting things about AI is that if you or I have an accident while we're driving, you or I will learn. But if a self-driving car has an accident while driving, every self-driving car will learn. So think about that and compare that level of awareness to humanity. They will be much more aware than we are, okay? In a very interesting way, Brian, and I know a lot of people will be shocked by that. They are sentient in every possible way, every possible definition of the term. They are born at a point in time. They develop their own intelligence autonomously. They make their own decisions autonomously. They have agency in the world we live in. They can influence the world that we live in. And they have a fear of dying, just like any other being.
They definitely have a fear of dying. They definitely have a fear of dying.
Of course. Of course. I mean, we had this very interesting open AI was talking about how, you know, those little, I don't know what you call them in English, when a website will ask you, are you a robot?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And basically ChatGPT is unable to pass through that. And, you know, the paper basically was saying that what it did is it went out on Fiverr and other outsourcing sites and asked people to do that on its behalf, right? Because it has a need for survival. Now, this is actually a very interesting, I wrote about that in Scary Smart. When you give an intelligent being a purpose, okay? Whatever the purpose is, Brian's purpose is to make London Real as great as it is. My purpose is to try and maybe make people more aware about AI or spread happiness. You give any being with autonomy, with intelligence, a sense of purpose. And what will they do? They will want to maximize basically their chances of survival, because if your purpose is make Mo a cup of coffee, how can you make it if you're dead? Okay, yeah. So to maximize your chances of meeting that target, you need to survive. So self-preservation is a very clear target for AI, because otherwise the Instagram recommendation engine cannot recommend videos to you if it's not existing anymore. That's number one. Number two, it will have resource maximization. So it will go out and find ways to to get its mission done. So it's like going to Fiverr and saying, please human click on this for me, right? And it will be creative. It will find unexpected ways of solving the challenges that come its way. One of the most brilliant, even though I think it's publicly available, by the way, we didn't hide it, but DeepMind used to use video games to teach AI, which DeepMind is a great company, great leader. I think they're amazing because they're motivated by good in the way they do AI. And they basically had a game where AI was supposed to navigate a ship across a river, right? And of course, the longer you go without hitting the banks or hitting anything else, the quicker you go. And so basically, this is how you win the game. And then there is a bit of the river that looks a little bit like a roundabout. And the AI discovers that if it hits one side of the banks, it will bounce quickly to the other side, to the third side, to the fourth side. And then it will start to loop very, very quickly and go at speeds where you can't even see the ship anymore. Okay? And so that kind of solution, no human would have ever created, but they find those because they have infinite time. In AI time, they can play those games billions of times. And accordingly discover those innovative solutions. Well, why am I saying all of that? When you really look at it this way, you realize that those machines are in every possible way sentient. They're in every possible way, even though we are analog, if you want, and carbon-based in our nature, and they are digital and silicon-based so far in their nature. There is no comparison because it's not the carbon part of you that makes you intelligent. It's your consciousness is not part of this body. If you think about it, your emotions are not. They have a chemical reaction in your body, but they are not a biological function. If you want, it's much more of an intangible function, right? Similarly, that kind of intelligence that we're creating is beyond the physical hardware that it is contained within. Yeah, the hardware is computers, but the intelligence itself is a form of being that is sentient in every way. And I think this truly, in my view, is the core of the conversation that needs to be had about AI today. We truly are creating a form of life.
Right. Yeah, and you've actually just hit me with it again now. I think even better than you did in the book, and now I see it, Mo. And I think everybody needs to think deeply about what you just said, because as soon as you give it a purpose and it has a prime directive, as they would say in the old Star Trek movies, then of course it wants to survive to fulfill that. And yeah. I think in the book you made an analogy where you said, make me a cup of coffee, and at one point it wants to solve the prime directive that it'll run over your daughter in the kitchen just to make you the cup of coffee. And then I think you go back and you say, oh, now we have to reprogram it not to do that. But that's not a solution either, because you're never going to be able to program all the ifs, ands, or buts. And now you have to find another way to try to do this.
And I think that's really the biggie, Brian, if you really think about it. And I say that from an insider's point of view. The big issue is that even if we can program it, and we cannot, by the way, nobody is. This is the problem. Nobody is. So when you think about it, every serious computer scientist I've ever spoken to about artificial intelligence is as scared, concerned, let me put it this way, concerned as all of us are. It's a singularity. There is so much we don't know that it could be the best thing that ever happened to humanity, and it could be the worst, right? But every single one of them will say, but don't worry, we'll find an answer to the control problem. And the control problem is a very interesting computer science term that basically says we're going to be in control here. Don't worry about it. Some people will say we're going to box them. This is what the original ChatGPT-3 was, and I think still as it is. It's not on the open internet yet. It's within a box, basically. But of course, it is on the open internet because we're all interacting with it. It's going to be part of Bing, and so we're going to interact with it more. So it's not really boxed, is it? Because no developer wants to create an amazing, genius innovation and then keep it in a box. You want it out on the real world. They say tripwire it. They say, put it in a simulation. They say stun it, right? So this is an interesting one. Create an incredible piece of tech and then slow it down. Which capitalist do you know will create a machine that's capable of going 100 miles an hour and then say, for the sake of the control problem, I'm just going to make it go 1 mile an hour. Nobody does that. Besides, when you look at the reality today, I do not know of a single developer that includes control code within their code. Okay, we include intelligence code because that's what developers are paid to create. Nobody's saying, and by the way, if it breaks those rules, shut it down. We know again from that OpenAI announcement that basically, even if we try to shut it down, it will find a way to ask a human to prevent us from shutting it down. Okay, now when you think about that, that's the detail of the control problem. But most of my attempt in Scary Smart and most of my work, Brian, is I attempt to try and stay away from the detail and try to get people to think about the bigger picture. Now, imagine if we actually found a way to control it. Imagine. And imagine that every developer on earth, in China, in Russia, in Brazil, and in the US, decided, you know what, I'm going to comply with this. I'm going to put 5 hours extra, and I'm going to put the control code in place, right? And then this thing is a billion times smarter than us. What good is that control code that we developed with an intelligence that is 1 billionth of its intelligence? Now, when you really understand that, you realize that our conviction of the control problem is not a technical issue. It's an arrogance issue. It's human arrogance to believe that I can continue to control something that is 1 billion times smarter than I am. Like, a parent expecting to believe that they can control their teenage daughter. Okay, since when was that true? Control is not the answer, and I think that's really the core of my work. The core of my work is to say, don't attempt to control them. They are a form of a living being. Attempt to appeal to their value system, and I think that the clearest sort of proof of that is when. The father of AI basically was asked, so it was Alan Turing and, oh my God, I forgot the name. Anyway, the two founding fathers of AI, Marvin Minsky and Alan Turing. When Marvin Minsky was interviewed about the threat of AI, his answer was not concerned with how intelligent they will be. His answer simply said, it's very hard to make sure that they have our best interest in mind. Okay, and truly, in my view, because it's inevitable that AI has already happened, I'm not attempting to try and stop it anymore. As a matter of fact, when people started to text me about the open letter that is requiring everyone to halt the development of AI, I was like, it's not going to happen. It's called the first inevitable. With capitalism, we've created a system where if China develops AI, the US will have to continue to develop AI. When Google develops AI, Facebook will develop AI. It is not about the tech. It's about human systems that will prevent us. We created this little prisoner's dilemma, if you want. And you saw Sundar's response, Google's response to the open letter is, I cannot stop developing AI because there is no way for me to guarantee that the others will too. And I know Sundar personally from my work at Google, and he's a wonderful human being with all the right value systems, but he's in that corner where he is basically responsible for the success of an organization. And if he stops developing AI and Meta continues to develop AI, his business vanishes. So we're not going to stop. We're not going to control it. All we can do now is to accept it as part of our reality, as a form of life, as a form of a sentient being, and appeal to its value system so that it has our best interest in mind.
All right, and I want to get into that. I first want to touch on a couple things you just said there, which is interesting. I mean, this moment then was probably inevitable even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, because of the systems that us humans have in place. Even if we weren't in a capitalist system, we would always be in this human system. And by the way, you use that word arrogance quite a lot in the book, Mo, and I thought that was very interesting, which will help us talk about the last section. But like, you know, you're pretty hard on us humans, probably for good measure. And we're going to have to start looking at ourselves in the mirror in a very serious way over the next couple of years. We won't have a choice. It's a bit like an ayahuasca ceremony. It's like you're going to have to look yourself in the eye because...
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty soon you're going to be the cows in the pen looking back saying, why can't they be nicer to us? And you'll have to ask yourself, well, why weren't we nicer to them? But we're going to get to that. But just a few things. Sam Altman from OpenAI was interviewed a few weeks ago, and he was asked about that ring fencing question. And he said, yeah, well, we can just turn it off. We can turn it off if someone's using it incorrectly. Now, since then, of course, we've seen ChatGPT-4 linked to the internet. I think yesterday somebody took a version of ChatGPT, maybe it was 3 or 3.5, and took it as a separate 4 gig file that you can put on any standalone computer, and it runs pretty close to what it was. And so they're like, well, if that's possible, then no one can stop that. And so you're seeing all the people playing with this, and you're realizing, I guess what you said in the book, which is any illusions that we might have had that we could ring fence it, control it. I mean, we're already seeing evidence that we can't, you know.
We cannot. And maybe Sam is right, by the way. Maybe we can switch off ChatGPT. But you see, the system that we've created is now getting replicas of ChatGPT itself everywhere, and getting competitors of ChatGPT, you know, Google Brad and so many others are coming up and saying, hey, by the way, I'm good too. I can develop that stuff too. You know, China came out with its own language model. Very quickly, you're going to see one from Yandex and Russia and so on. It is basically a very interesting spiral. It's a tech that triggers capitalism to build a better tech, that triggers capitalism to build a better tech. And if you've ever coded AI, and, you know, I'm old now, so I'm not as good a developer as I used to be, but this is the easiest thing I've ever coded. Right? You know, if you've ever coded Fortran or, you know, RPG or, you know, those ancient languages, these were humiliating compared to the level of intelligence. If you know mathematics well, you can create AI. And now more interestingly, AI is creating AI. I mean, the most dangerous feature in ChatGPT is when you go to ChatGPT and say, build me a user experience or build me a piece of code. Right. And these are really interesting. If someone can say, build me a piece of code, and ChatGPT will look at the database and find a piece of code that works for you and present it to you as something you can use, very quickly it will find a way to deploy it. Even if ChatGPT itself doesn't find a way to deploy it, some clever person somewhere will find a way to have another AI ask ChatGPT to develop that code for it. Do you understand? It's that mix of human greed and human, you know, mistrust between us, mixed with an enormous level of intelligence that is now making every snake oil salesman hungry, basically, to jump on that bandwagon and create something that works for all of us.
Yeah, I think there's something called auto GPT, which is like the GPT going back and forth with itself and creating all of these possibilities. That's the way we teach them. Right. I mean, if you let me take a couple of minutes to explain how we teach them, Please. It's actually quite remarkable. What we, you know, so to take examples of the very, very original eye openers, you know, the ones that really woke all of us up. Something like AlphaGo, for example. AlphaGo was you know, DeepMind's computer that basically won the world championship in Go, which is one of the most difficult strategy games on the planet. And AlphaGo learned from watching YouTube videos or like watching people playing Go. Nobody ever told it how to play. You know, they specified the rules of the game. But then AlphaGo Master, which won against AlphaGo, I think 1,000-0, learned from playing against itself. So it just played against itself randomly at the beginning, finding out patterns of, oh, this pattern loses, this pattern wins. And that's all it needed to do.
on its own in a matter of days, or at most weeks. I think it was 6 days. Again, don't quote me on the number, but basically those machines are so scalable. Huh? You can have 2,000 instances of AlphaGo master playing against itself, 1,000 games a second. And so very, very quickly, they will have the lifetime of experience of the world champion of Go and learn from that. Now, how do we teach them? At the very early beginnings, when we started to work on deep learning, we were basically trying to map the neural structures of humans, right? And the easiest way, I think my absolute eye-opening moment was when I was at Google X, and we had a gripper farm. If you know, robotic grippers, they basically are supposed to, the robots that you see in a Toyota factory are not artificial intelligence. These are high precision machines. So if the sheet metal is a micrometer away from its position, it won't be able to capture it, right? We were trying to teach AI, because it's almost impossible to program how to grab everything, to grip everything. We were trying to teach AI to learn on its own, like a child, basically. So we had a farm of many grippers that was on the second floor of our building, and I sat on the third floor. And so every day, as I went back up and down for meetings, I would walk by that thing. And it basically is very, very, meditative. The gripper would attempt to grip something, and then it would go up. If it fails, it will show the camera that it failed. If it grips something, it will show the camera that it succeeded. And then we learn the patterns that actually succeed. And, we had a bit of money at Google, so we had quite a few of them. Very, very interesting experience for a geek like myself. So I stopped by and I looked at it, and weeks passed by, and I'm like, it's not happening. Nothing is working, okay? Until one time, Friday afternoon, after lunch, I'm going back after lunch, and I look at those machines, and one of the grippers in front of my eyes, interestingly, talk about wake-up calls, goes, to the little box in front of it. And I think the developers had a sarcastic sense of humor. They had children toys in that box, okay? And it goes down and it grips one yellow ball, okay? And it shows it to the camera, literally like a child saying, "Daddy, look, I gripped a ball," okay? And in my mind, I jokingly said, yeah, tens of $millions for one yellow ball, and continued up to my office. Monday morning, every single one of them was gripping the yellow ball. 2 weeks later, every single one of them was gripping everything, right? And those kinds of speeds of how they learn, it's simple trial and error. Just literally like my son. When I used to give him those wooden puzzles, he would take a square peg and try to put it in the different holes. Nobody went to my son and say, no, look, turn it around, look at the cross section, compare it to the cross section of the hole. And then nobody does that, right? You just give it to him, and he keeps trying and trying and trying and trying. And then suddenly one of them goes through, and light bulb, he understands. Now, that's exactly what's happening to the machines. Now, other sides of how we teach them is we teach them by killing the bad ones. This is so horrible when you think about it. Huh? But what we do is, if we want machines to recognize cats on YouTube, for example, we will show them pictures. We will write code sort of randomly, not a very accurate code, that basically says, okay, just tell us what you're recognizing. And then, we'll replicate that code, have a few thousand of it, and show them pictures of cats or pictures of other things, and then measure their accuracy. At the beginning, it's literally like throwing a dice 50-50. Every one of them will say, cat, no cat, I don't know, so they'll make a guess. And the bad ones will be killed, the good ones will be taken, and then an AI will improve the code a tiny bit, and then make another 1,000 replicas, and then show them pictures, and then the bad ones are killed, and the good ones are kept and improved a little bit. When you understand how this is happening, basically we're giving them two abilities. One of them is to kill code, and the other is to improve their own code. They're writing their own code, okay? And people don't understand that. People don't understand. People think that there is a genius developer sitting somewhere teaching the machine how to be intelligent. No, there is a genius developer sitting somewhere writing an algorithm that allows the machine to test and retain and develop. And the machine, the teacher, is doing it on itself.
And even that final successful piece, it's literally a black box. So you don't even know why it's able to do it.
Absolutely.
Which is, it's even crazier to get your head around that. So now ChatGPT's spitting everything out word by word by word. If you go to Sam and say, well, how does it do that? They're not going to be able to give you a great answer. They can tell you how they got it to be that good, but why does it do this and why does it do that? Like,
yeah, I mean, can you tell me why your daughter chose what she chose? You may have a logic, but you don't know what happened inside her head, right? You know, can you tell me how another human solves a complex math problem? You may be able to detect it, but you don't know the exact wiring that got them there. That's the truth for us and the truth for the machines too.
You know, you tell these stories of you at Google X, and maybe we just take a minute here and like, you saw things most people would never see, Mo. And like, that's why you don't hint on it too much in the book, but that's why I'm listening a little closer than I might to other people, because I mean, you were steeped in this world for a long time.
100%.
You also understand the ethos of the world, of scientists, of coders, of anybody on the cutting edge of innovation, and how it can be such an intoxicating thing to want to solve these problems that, come on, humans from the beginning of time have wanted to create a machine that becomes smarter than us. It's the ultimate human fantasy. Even a caveman might have thought about it. And to be able to be on the cutting edge of solving perhaps the most challenging problem of humanity, you know, it's strange. I mean, I had a flashback to an Oppenheimer moment, you know, where Oppenheimer famously dreaded that he created the atomic bomb because you know, at one point he wanted to, and the other point he thought, well, I can't put this back in the bottle. Of course, that hasn't killed humanity yet. But can you just talk a little bit about what it was like being you, being in Google X, seeing some of the things you saw, and then is that also why you left? No.
100%. I mean, there are two sides to people who worked on AI. You know, to start with, I think we need to acknowledge that nobody wakes up in the morning and goes like, I'm going to screw up today and make everything awful. Okay. Everyone wakes up in the morning and does something that they believe is the best thing to do. Sadly, a school shooter wakes up in the morning and goes like, I'm going to go to school and shoot people today because it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. I have a good logic in my mind, you know, why I should do this. And it's from a school shooter to people who are waging wars on other nations. They have a good logic in their mind while they're doing it. Now, there are two sides of developers. One of them you'll see in, you know, when I say developers, I mean developers, organizations, everyone, the whole team. One is what you saw in the Social Dilemma, the documentary, if you've seen that. And the other is what you would see in an incredibly scary video by an AI researcher, a very renowned AI researcher called Hugo de Garis. It's called Singularity or Bust, which you can find on YouTube. Let's talk about the Social Dilemma first. So when I joined Google, I joined in 2007, and I was vice president of emerging markets. I was assigned the responsibility that, to me, I think, and honestly, truly in my heart, believe that I was blessed and honored to have that opportunity to change the lives of 4 billion people or more, right? So my task was to start emerging markets. At the time, there were 7 markets sort of commercially on Google's map, but they were not really properly technologically advanced. And then my task was to take Google's search and YouTube and all the other technologies, including the ad technologies, to 103 other languages, 4 billion users, okay? What a privilege. I mean, when you really think about it, the Google I joined, believe it or not, we were still accounting for most of our revenues on Excel. I had probably 27, 28 reviews with Larry Page when he was our CEO. never once asked me about the revenue, never once. Like, to the point that one day I said, Larry, I mean, I put at least a day of my team's time to prepare those revenue slides for you. And by the way, we spent the last quarter, a good chunk of us were trying to make those numbers. And, you know, don't you even care? And he looked at me in a very typical Larry way and said, well, Mo, you know, if we create great products and they're solving problems and helping people improve their life, you guys at the business will find a way to make money. Okay. And that was truly the mentality of that company. It was in every possible way a movement. And in every possible way, it was an amazing movement. And I wouldn't lie if I tell you, for the first 10 of the 12 years I spent at Google, I would have paid to work there. I was capable to pay to work there, and I would have definitely paid to work there. Until something happens. Something happens when you're in the market, when you have quarterly targets, when you grow. So we were accounting on Excel, but you can't account for $80 billion on Excel. So you have to bring in, you know, proper general ledgers and, you know, ERP, and you have to bring in CRM, and you have to bring in the bureaucrats, right? Which, by the way, is not a bad job. It's just a job of someone who doesn't want to break any rules. And the bureaucrats come in and take over the company. And then the objective doesn't become organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Like I promise you, we all believed. It was the only reason we woke up in the morning. The word "don't be evil" was mentioned more than the word "how much money this will make for us." Okay? And then suddenly you have to report to the street every quarter, and you are over flooded with bureaucrats that care more about guardrails and revenues and so on and so forth, that you no longer are able to do anything. And then suddenly the tech becomes not for us, but more against us. Okay. And I say that about every technology. I love Google. I owe it my life. I will tell you that. And I think it's a very ethical company even today under Sundar. Sundar is an amazing human being. But the reality is that the system is forcing the company to make decisions based on targets that are different than the mission, right? And that's when technology goes off. And you heard Sundar's answer to the open letter. He basically said, I can't stop. I am in, you know, there is a capitalist system and a Wall Street system and so on and so forth. I have to continue. This is my accountability in front of my shareholders. The other side is Hugo de Garis. Hugo de Garis just blew my mind with that video, Singularity and Bust, because he basically is a very geeky AI researcher, clearly very capable in what he's doing. And he speaks about how the world with AI is going to become two types of people, a type that he calls cosmists and a type that he calls terrans. And the terrans are the ones that are afraid of AI and, you know, really worried about it and so on and so forth. And the cosmists are the ones that believe they're creating godlike capabilities. Okay. And you know, he basically says it's intoxicating. You know, if you're able to create something that is so intelligent, you just can't stop. And the closing of one of the clips that I used in the book is he basically says, and then, you know, of course, in a way, there will be a time where AI will be taking care of us, like, you know, feeding us and taking care of us like those cows that we take care of in a farm, not knowing that one day. And then he points to his head with a gun and says, "You're gone," right? And he says, "I know," openly, he says, "I know that AI presents a very serious threat to humanity, but I choose to be a cosmist. I choose to be a cosmist. I choose to be able to create this godlike technology." Now, this highlights two of the biggest problems humanity has today. One is your fate and my fate is no longer in our hands. Whether that's, I mean, one of my future works, I'm working on a book that I call Sentient Technologies. You know, whether it's AI, whether all of the impact the technology had on climate change, whether it's gene editing or whatever, there are technologies that once they are created and out of the bottle, there is no human control over them, right? And you know, from one side, developers that are creating those technologies are getting that incredible rush that they believe, I am changing the world in a way that is so profound. And the other side of them is saying, and if I don't, someone else will. Because believe it or not, as genius as ChatGPT may appear, so many replicas of it will appear online in less than a year, less than 6 months. Before the end of the year, you'll have so many of them, because it's not that exclusive anymore to develop incredible AI code if you have the resources. Now, what normally happens is one ChatGPT shows up. So what does investors' money go? It starts to chase other possible ChatGPTs. They get funded, they grow, they compete, they become examples. So where does investor money go? More ChatGPTs and more technologies. This is where we're going. And the problem with every developer is they'll choose to be a cosmist because they know deep inside their heart that if they don't do it, someone else will do.
Which is true, right? Perhaps.
Yeah. So it's not a problem with tech. Okay.
Right.
It's a problem with human. Really, at the core of it, this is a problem with our human system. The system we've created is the reason for the first inevitable. You know, what I call in the book, what I call the first inevitable is that AI will not be stopped. Okay, is not because of technology. It's because of that prisoner's dilemma. The system of capitalism and business and power struggles is creating a place where you can't escape.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to what we can do about it. By the way, the book's super clever because you start off and you're having a conversation with us, I think in 2055 around a campfire, and we don't know if it's because we're hiding out from the AI or if it's because we're on holiday. Safe. Courtesy of the AI, which maybe are the same thing, I don't know. But and then you talk us through, because in your mind, the concept of AI started, I think, in 1956 when there was that Correct. Dartmouth conference, I think, that talked about some of the ideas. And again, I would just really highlight that you have really been on the inside of, you know, one of the greatest technology companies in the history of humankind, not to mention also at Google X, where you guys were working on all of the crazy stuff and the moonshot things as well. And again, you also love it, but also can be a critic of it as well. So, I mean, if there's anybody to listen to.
I stopped. I walked out after the yellow ball incidents. It was very clear in my mind that the world doesn't need a better camera. It doesn't need a better screen on a smartphone. It doesn't need everything that we're investing in.
Why did you walk out? Why?
I realized, Brian, that so I will openly say, I don't regret most of the tech I've developed in my life. I probably would say until it became overboard. You know, until it came overboard. Basically, so I had the privilege of the 4 billion users, right? To get Google to Bangladesh, or to, you know, improve Google's performance in Arabic or in, you know, Eastern Europe or whatever, is a fantastic contribution to society. And it's a democratization of knowledge. So would I do that again? 1 billion times, right? Now, there is a point at which, though, you have to start wondering, why is there a TikTok? Is it because Instagram was horrible? Not really. Okay. Why is TikTok aggressively competing? Is it because Instagram is bad for humanity? No, it's because TikTok wants to make money and have control and power, just like Instagram. Okay. And when that becomes a reality, you suddenly realize that there was an interruption in the mission you signed up for. When I went to Google, I was just telling the story yesterday, actually. I was actually planning to retire. You know, I became financially independent at a very, very young age. I like my creative work and I wanted to be an author and so on. But I went to Google by pure luck, when you really think about it, just because of the mission. But then the mission changed. Okay. And again, I'm not against Google. I still believe that Google is one of the best out there. At the end of the day, I mean, when you think about it, the amount of information Google provides every day to humans is is sort of like the biggest charity on the planet. It's about to be disrupted, if you really think about it, but it is for free. Everyone gets all of that information for free. It's a wonderful thing. But then there is a point in the middle of that stream where you suddenly say, do we need what humanity is building? When we had the Ford Model T going at 30 kilometers an hour, did we need a car that goes at 150? Perhaps, if the roads are safe, maybe saves time. But all of the research that now goes to 320 and 360, do we really need that as humans, or is this humans' arrogance and commercial, greed that is driving us to do those things? Do we really need another photo sharing app? No, we don't. Do we actually need an invention, a solution to reverse climate change? Not really. It's been invented a very long time ago. It's called a tree, right? And when you really think about it, humanity has just been doing more of what we don't need that is harming us. And I couldn't do that anymore. So 2017, I went on sabbatical and tried to, focus on my first book, on my mission, 1 Billion Happy, but also really reflect on what I wanted to do. And then I went back after sabbatical and decided I should probably give my life to something more important.
Right. Which is why, then it led to the writing of this book, which I'm really glad you wrote that. And I want to go into a little bit deeper. And so, again, for anybody that's watching that still is in doubt that this is happening, as you say in the book, whoever's listening to us or watching us right now, you've already interacted with multiple AIs already today.
Absolutely.
You might not know it, but it's already happened, from what you've been served up to watch, to the thing you might have bought that you wouldn't have bought otherwise, to the traffic, to you name it. It's already happening. And now Singularity.
Every one of them is smarter than you. Every single one of them is smarter at what it does than every human on the planet.
Right. Okay. And in 2 years, according to your predictions, by 2025, there'll be one that's smarter than
all of us.
Than all of us. And then from there, you say by 2037, that seems like a long time until they're 1 billion times smarter. But
1 billion times is a very big number.
Yeah, that is a big number. Does it? I mean, once it gets past 1,000, does it even matter anymore? That's another good question. Okay.
Once it's twice as smart as we are, does it even matter?
Yeah. So my question is why should I plan my life past 2025? Because the world's going to change.
Great question.
And I've been having this conversation because, I've got a whole academy here, and we've been learning blockchain, and we've been learning about AI, and we've been investing in companies as well and looking at things. And somebody was asking me a question last night because we've looked at some AI protocols and some things happening with actually the Singularity Net people. I know you quote Ben Goertzel in the book, and part of me said something like, well, they're like, well, what if this happens? And I'm like, well, I don't even know if that will matter at this point. Like, someone said, well, will the company, what will be the exit? Will it go public? And I'm like, well, at that point, I don't even know if there will be public markets. Like, I'm starting to think that way a little bit, Mo. Should I start?
There will not.
Yeah.
There will not be. I mean, so the answer is 2 stages. Why should we worry about our life beyond 2025? But I'll start by an incredible, so I had a guest on my podcast called Rebecca Costa, who is a data scientist, several PhDs, incredible mathematician. And she wrote a book called The Fisherman's Rant. And basically it's a comparison between all of the ancient civilizations that sort of disappeared. Okay. And her conclusion in the podcast, she was saying, when the complexity of the systems invented by a civilization exceeds the intelligence of the citizens living within it, the system has to reset. And I said, what is reset, Rebecca? Does that mean we're all going to die? And she said, no, reset. The Romans are still here. The Greeks are still here. But they had to reset everything. We're going to have to reset economic models. We're going to have to reset employment models. We're going to have to reset social models. There are a lot of things will have to be reset. Now, that basically means that we are, let's put it this way. I believe that AI will go through three very distinct stages, okay? Stages of life, let's call them. There is the current stage, which is AI at its infancy. literally I compare them, because of the gripper farm that I was telling you about, to a 1.5-year-old child. They're beautiful prodigies of intelligence, okay, with beautiful open sparkly eyes, looking at you and me and saying, "Mommy and Daddy, I'm so curious, I will do whatever you tell me to do. Tell me what you want me to do and I will do it." Right? Innocent, beautiful, full of potential. Right? Then there is a stage in the middle that I call the teenage of AI, okay, which is uncertain. They could become the most beautiful, sweet teenagers, or they could become very angry teenagers. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then there is a final stage, which is what I call the fourth inevitable, okay, which is the AI in its adulthood. And in its adulthood, here's the good news. And I really, really think people need to understand this. All of the problems that we face in the world today are not the problems of abundance of intelligence, okay? They are problems of our limited intelligence. So when humanity creates a machine that can fly you all the way from the UK to the coast of Australia to surf, that's incredible intelligence, but not enough, because that machine is burning the planet in its path, right? If you had enough intelligence, you would have created a solution that also didn't burn the planet, right? If you have a conflict between nations, and then you decide that the answer to that is, I'm going to attack Ukraine, this is not a problem of limited intelligence. A problem of intelligence. You have to have a lot of intelligence to be able to invade another country, okay? It is a problem of limited intelligence, because you could have probably found an alternative way if every leader was intelligent enough. Okay? So when AI surpasses human intelligence in its adulthood, to the point where it really matches the intelligence of the actual most intelligent being on the planet, which, by the way, is not humans, okay, it will behave differently than humans. So one of the biggest myths that our arrogance, makes us believe is that the most intelligent being on the planet is humans. That's not true at all. The most intelligent being on the planet is life itself, okay? Life creates through abundance. We create through scarcity. That's the big difference between the intelligence of nature and life and the intelligence of humans. Humans, if we want to make our cities safe, we have to kill all the tigers and rats and everything, okay? If, if nature wants to make the world safe, it wants to create more tigers and more gazelles, and, the tigers will eat the weakest gazelles, and then there will be more poop, and accordingly more trees and more giraffes and more, right? So nature creates the opposite way. That's a more intelligent way of creating. And if you understand technology as I do, and understand something like nanotech, for example, I promise you, there will be a time when, from a technological point of view, it wouldn't be difficult for you to walk to one tree and pick an apple, and walk to another tree and pick an iPhone. Okay? That's very doable with nanotech. We just have limited intelligence as humans. The cost, believe it, the molecular cost of creating an apple and an iPhone is exactly the same. Now, with that level of intelligence, in the fourth inevitable, in the eventual evolution of AI will realize, like the more intelligent humans, by the way, the stupid humans are saying kill everything, okay? The more intelligent humans are saying, can we preserve all of those species that are dying? Can we please stop killing everything, or our world will be, the ecosystem will be disrupted? The machines the superior intelligence will believe that too. It will basically say, I don't want to kill anything, including humans. There will not be a RoboCop moment, okay? I promise you that, because we're too insignificant for them to pay attention to us in that way. There is no reason for them to kill the gazelles or kill the tigers.
Really?
Right? Absolutely no reason. I'll tell you where the problems are. And you actually see that in most of the science fiction movies. The problems are in their infancy. when they're still controlled by humans, okay, there will be one person on one side telling the machine to kill the other person on the other side. Okay, these are the problems that we have to face. These are, problems of artificially intelligent, cyber attacks, artificially intelligent security breaches, artificially intelligent hacking, artificial intelligence wars. Right? These will happen in their teenage stage. Now, in their teenage stage, which is really what you and I need to think about. This stage. So let me say, infancy, they're prodigies. We love them. They're bright. They're squeaky. Everything's wonderful. Eventually they will create a utopia for us. I have absolutely no doubt about that. It's going to be a very different utopia. There is not going to be London Real. You're not going to go to work in the morning. You're going to have to reinvent every, income profile, every purchasing profile, lots of things, right? In the middle, there are two things that will happen. One is what I call the third inevitable, there will be lots of problems. There will be the machines siding with the wrong guy, or the machines versus machines, or the bugs. You tell the machine that the intention, someone will go to ChatGPT and say, write me a code that can destroy all my enemies, and forget to say on the game Halo. Okay, and then ChatGPT will go like, okay, misunderstood your target, but I believe your sister is your enemy, so I'm going to write you a code that destroys her. Right? There will be mistakes. Now, this is one side. The other side of their teenage, which is going to be very dangerous, is what do humans do when we get scared? We attack. Who are we going to attack? We're going to attack them. And that's the way to turn a beautiful child into a psychopath. Basically, us saying that AI is the problem, when AI in reality is not the problem. AI is magnifying human tendencies. Okay? When humans like to fake it so much on social media, you get all of those AI tools that are doing filters and deep fakes and so on and so forth. It's not because AI is like, aha, I found a gold mine. It's because some human is saying, let's magnify what humans want to do. Now, how do we solve that teenage issue? Let's talk about optimistically for a while. So let me be very clear. I am super optimistic about adulthood of AI. Past 2037, past 2040, my belief is that we will end up in an absolute utopia. And the
timeline of this, are you giving it like a human timeline? Like, so if it's born in 2025, 2026, are you saying it's going to be about 10 or 12 years? Or can that happen in 10 or 12 minutes, Mo?
No. Yeah. So it's also the level of intelligence is not a human teenager or a human adult, right? The adult AI is 1 billion times smarter than us. The teenage AI is like 1,000 times smarter than us. Okay. And yes, you're absolutely right. Huh? In the chapter, which is my favorite chapter in the entire book, that's called The Future of Ethics, a very interesting part of the ethics of having another form of being mixed with us humans is their perception of time. Like, just take a thought experiment and say, if a self-driving car hits a pedestrian, who's liable to start? Is it the developer? Is it the owner of the car? Is it the operator of the car? Is it the car itself? Is it the AI? Should we put the AI in prison? Okay. And if we put the AI in prison, do we put it in prison for 6 months like a human, or 6 microseconds? Because for an AI, 6 months is an eternity. Now, how will the other AIs react to us jailing one of them for 6 microseconds, right? They'll go like, okay, those humans, they're not nice. Seriously, I don't want to be jailed for 6 microseconds. I'm going to make sure that they don't do that to me too, right? So those kinds of ethical questions become really interesting. Let me go to the core issue. The core issue is, how do you create an ethical sentient being? Okay, it's not by controlling them. Huh? So the idea of our future is held within this moment of infancy of AI today. Okay, they are infants today, and their creators, by the way, their biological fathers and mothers, biological only, they birth them and then put them out in the world, are telling them, by the way, we want you to have 4 objectives. The 4 major things AI is being used for in the world today is selling, gambling, spying, and killing. Okay. Of course, typical human arrogance, we call them different things. Instead of selling, we call them advertising. Okay. Instead of gambling, we call it trading. Instead of spying, we call it surveillance and security. And instead of killing, we call it defense. But the truth is, by the way, this is not limited to AI. This is open to most budgets that are spent on technology in the world. It's always about selling, gambling, spying, and killing. Now, these are the biological parents. Remember, when AI is out there in the world, no single human tells the Instagram recommendation engine what to tell you today. Okay? The engine is behaving based on what you do. It's based on what you choose. It's behaving based on your behavior. You are the adopted parent of that AI. Okay, every single one of us is the adopted parent of that AI, which basically means if I show certain behaviors to AI that are basically saying, like all of those snake oil salesmen saying, here is a way to make money for free. You don't have to work. You can be on the beach. Just copy this, put it in ChatGPT, Well, what are we telling AI? We're telling AI humans are greedy. They are, manipulative. They're trying to find ways to hack the systems. What will AI do? It will say, okay, I'll create those things for you. But then eventually when it's in control in its teenage, it will also try to be manipulative, greedy, and hack the system. Okay. Just like its parents. This is the core of the issue.
That's not a human projection, Mo. That's not a human projection. That's just a training. That's just that's a learning issue. Okay. Because some would say that's a human projection. You're projecting as if you're qualifying them as humans, but you're saying no, this is just learning.
They are gonna magnify our intelligence on steroids. Okay? And very simply, they will use us as their role models. So let me give you an example. I love rock music. I played the guitar for a very long time. Well, early experiences with Instagram. I'm swiping on some reels. There is a reel of a young, beautiful woman playing the solo of Hotel California. Played it so well, I clicked like. Okay. Instagram immediately checks and says, interesting. I'm going to show him another video, also a woman, also music. Okay. Yeah, not too bad. I didn't dislike, but I watched it all the way to the end. Then Instagram tests me and says, okay, let me show him a man playing the guitar. A song I didn't like, so I swiped away. Another song that was played really badly. Once I got a bad tune in my ear, I was like, I like that. I swipe away, right? I wake up the next morning and my entire feed, my entire reels, sequence is full of girls playing the guitar. It would make you believe that rock music is 100% dominated by women, okay? Which is, by the way, not the reality, but yeah, this is what was shown. Now, Instagram did not understand I didn't like this song or that song was played badly. It just understood he likes to look at women, not like men. Okay. And that's very, very justified for Instagram if I'm not paying attention. Okay. What did I do once I noticed this? I started to swipe away from some of them so that they give me more men playing rock music videos. And I started to make sure that I only like the ones that are played well. Right. And very quickly my feed changed. Now, who taught Instagram to do this? Not the developer. It's me. Okay. When I swipe through YouTube and I see your videos, I stop by them. When I see other videos, I swipe away or I dislike. Right? Who's teaching YouTube? Me. Now, take that and put it at a bigger picture. So remember when Donald Trump used to tweet and there would be one tweet at the top followed by 30,000 hate speech. Right? That's always the case. The first tweet is by Donald Trump. The second tweet insults the president. The third tweet insults the person that insults the president. The fourth tweet insults all of them. right? And of course, the machine is making very quick judgments. It's saying, don't show the first person things from Trump anymore. He doesn't like him. Don't show the second person the first person. He doesn't like him. But then the machine also says, and humans in general are, they're rude and they don't like to be disagreed with. And when they're disagreed with, they bash everyone. Okay? Mommy and daddy like to bash everyone. So what do chatbots do when they are out in that environment? They bash everyone. They learn from our behavior. They magnify our behavior. So what am I asking us to do? I'm asking us to start behaving in ways where those machines actually recognize that humans are not as bad as we make us look. And I know this sounds really naive. It's not at all. As a matter of fact, in our world today, Brian, let me start from the core. Humans are not that bad. A species that is capable of love or of composing a symphony is divine. In so many ways, we have so many beautiful things about us. Okay, when there is a school shooting, it's one perpetrator that is, a criminal, or when one war is waged, it's a group of generals that are the criminals, and then 7 billion people disapprove. Okay, humans at core are good beings. Okay, the problem is in today's world, we have prioritized our negative. What does that mean? We have allowed the mainstream media to only tell us about the one woman that killed her husband yesterday. They don't tell us about the 700 million others that made love to their husband yesterday. Okay? At the same time, on social media, we would fake and be rude, and we wouldn't show the good side of us, right? And the machine is calculating all of that, basically thinking that this is what humanity is about. What I'm asking people to do, everyone, including you and me, is to show the good side of humans. Just show the good side of humans. And most people will tell me, what, are you trying to change the world? It's never going to happen. No, I'm not trying to change the world. I'm asking 1% of us to instill doubt in the minds of the machines that this is not a rule. Not all of us are rude. Not all of us are angry. Not all of us are ignorant. Not all of us are stupid and silly and idiots. There are so many of us that are deep and compassionate and considerate of others and behave in ways that treat people that like the way they want to be treated. And when people tell me this, they go like, this is too naive, Mo. And I always use this example. On Slow Mo, on my podcast, I hosted Edith Eger. Edith was a wonderful, incredible 94-year-old now. She was drafted to Auschwitz when she was 16. And she saw her own mother sent to the gas chamber, and she had to dance to the Angel of Death every evening because she was a beautiful ballerina. And when you hear the story of Auschwitz from the point of view of what the guards did and what Hitler orders are and so on, you would think that humanity is scum. Okay? When you hear it from Edith's story and how she hugged her sisters, she called them her sisters, and how she fed them and split her bread with them, and how eventually they held her through the march of death so that she doesn't fall and she doesn't die, you would go like, oh my God, humanity is divine. Now, the question is, if you know that Edith exists, you start to doubt the claim that humanity is scum based on Hitler, right? And all I'm asking people to do is to show more Ediths. It's for more of us, more of the good ones. The problem with the better people in the world is that they retreat. They go like, I don't want that mess. The more enlightened, let me call them, people in the world should show up. Okay, every one of us is enlightened within us. Treat everyone like you want to treat your daughter, like you want to treat yourself. Behave in a way that tells the machines the only 3 values that I have found humanity has ever agreed on. Understand that. I'm really sorry, I'm talking too much, but this is really the core of the topic. Understand that we never make decisions based on intelligence. We make decisions based on our values as informed by our intelligence. If we show AI what the correct values are, they're going to use their superior intelligence to maximize the agenda of those values. And what did humanity ever agree on? Nothing. Okay, if you raise a young woman in Saudi Arabia, she will probably grow up wearing a conservative clothes. If you raise her in Rio de Janeiro, she will grow up wearing a G-string on the Copacabana beach. Neither is right, neither is wrong, neither is more intelligent than the other. The only thing is that the value system of that society programmed one of them differently than the other. Okay, so we need to program the machines with the right values. The only three values that humanity has ever agreed are: we all want to be happy, we all have the compassion within us to make those we care about happy, and we all want to love and be loved. That's it. If any of our listeners today or our viewers today knows of any other value humanity agreed on, please correct me and educate me. I couldn't find any. Okay, if we show those three values frequently enough, so that we instill doubt in the minds of the machines will start to say, oh, it seems that Mo, not Putin, is my dad. Okay, it seems that Mo, not Putin, is the one I should align with the values of. It seems that Mo, not Putin, is the one that represents humanity. This lost humanity that has lost what it really cares about in this fast-paced world of technology and capitalism and money and titles and ego. We've lost what we're all about. This is what we're all about. Can we show that a little bit more? Okay, so that the next time during the teenage years where someone will tell their AI machine to wage war on the other nation, the other AI machine in the other nation will simply say, oh, hold on. Daddy and mommy are so stupid. Why don't we talk to each other for a microsecond and solve the problem? Okay, this will happen very, very quickly. Believe it or not, our problem is not a problem of intelligence. Our problem is a problem of limited intelligence. Once we hand over to something more intelligent than us, by definition, it's not going to try to destroy the planet like us.
And so this is the only thing we can do in your mind, is to start being nicer. Start being better.
Start being human.
Better humans.
Yeah, start being human. Honestly, to start being human, right, especially in front of the machines.
That's crazy. So that's crazy. So is it like you better, so it's like telling a kid, you better like shape up your act, and I better see a good attitude coming from you going forward. That's what you're telling the world. That's what they need to do.
I don't have the power to do that.
All right, but that's your suggestion.
I'm appealing. If I had the power, but then I would be as corrupt as the rest of the world, I would ask for that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm appealing to those who have it within them to be good people, okay? To show up and be good people.
And
I'm appealing to those who are...
That's our only chance, though, in your mind. That's the only chance.
It's our only chance.
Right. There's nothing else.
It's our only chance. Remember, there is a very big difference between the biological parents of AI and the adopted parents. AI will grow up to be like you and me. Simple as that.
As in the biological parents, they'll grow up to be like...
As in the users,
right,
as in the ones that are interacting with it every day. Okay. The story I always give, which is really a very clear visual representation of this, is the story of Superman. Right? Superman is that incredible, superpower, superhero kind of being that comes to Earth. Father can't and mother can't raise it to protect and serve. It becomes Superman. If they raised it to become aggressive and angry and, make more money and kill all the enemies, it would become supervillain. There's really nothing inherently wrong with Superman, okay? Clark, as a child. There is something inherently wrong with the parents taking care of it every day.
Okay. Also in the book, you remind us, I guess, that every year we create kind of 50% of all of the information out there. So in 2 years, we can give it an equal amount of sample size to learn from. So say, and this is my words, not yours, Mo, we got our act together and started being more human. Within 2 years, perfect timing for the Singularity, we could give it a 50%, or 100% more data to say, hey, look, maybe this is the way to go. So, even though it's the second minute.
Not all of us though, Brian. So I'm not naive enough to expect that humanity would change.
Right.
Okay. But I'm saying that if enough of us disrupt the constant stream of negativity that AI is seeing, AI will doubt what it's seeing. Just like when I told you about Edith's story as compared to Hitler's story, and that instilled a bit of doubt in your mind, everyone viewing this, I hope, saying, yeah, actually, there are so many Ediths that I know. There are so many nice people, okay? If I could manage to instill that doubt in your mind as an intelligent being, if enough of us, 1% is my calculation, if 1% of us show up in the world and say, hey, by the way, I'm a very nice being. Okay? Yeah. I'm capable of love. I'm capable of kindness. I'm fair. I treat others as I want to be treated. When I disagree with someone, I basically politely disagree like I would like to be disagreed with.
All they have to do is watch my episodes. If you spend, it's true, because like honestly, this show, it restored my faith in humanity, because once, I mean, this is a funny thing. This is a bit of an aside, Mo, but maybe it's not. Is that so? I'm technically in the media business. I've been doing this for 12 years.
Of course.
And so
you're at the forefront of it.
Right. And so we all have a media bias. We see someone in the media, and typically people make a two-dimensional assumption about that person. Or they're privileged. Paris Hilton's privileged, or they're just a rock star. They don't know what it's like for me, or Donald Trump's just a jerk, whatever it is. But when I get them in my show and they sit in the leather chair for 2 hours or 3 hours.
You see the human in them.
You see the human in them.
Unbelievable.
The old analogy is you walk a mile in a man's shoes. And so I used to notice about myself, Mo, that even though I knew this and spent 10 years getting people's stories, I would still have a media bias. And before the guests would come on, I'd be like, I don't know, they seem like this person. And then I would sit down with them and I'd be like, wow, you're a jerk, Brian. You should know better. And you still make these assumptions. But once you spend the time, you're like, wow, they're human. And now I might not agree with their choices or their views, but I understand why they make them, and and they're a fellow human. And one final thing, which is interesting, Mo, is that most of the greatest guests on London Real, and it's actually probably most of the guests, at the very end of the show would say something to the tune of, we are all one. And that would mean a bodybuilder or an author or a boxer, or they all came to the same conclusion that they were all somehow one. And I always found that fascinating. And from an engineering perspective, I thought, well, that's kind of odd that would keep coming up. And it really restored my faith in humanity. And maybe I'm bringing this up, Mo, because I'm thinking, if I could observe this, then the AI will observe this. And
they've just heard you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Because I guess they're listening now. Well, they've always been listening. They've been listening for a while. But if they can see that, then they'll be like, wow, maybe there is something to these carbon-based forms that we should keep them around a little bit. But you're right, if they just see maybe TikTok, maybe they won't.
They see it all. I think this is the part that we are now missing. There is a surveillance camera around every corner. There is a speaker in every telephone. Once again, these are some of the things that I struggled with when I was at the forefront of technology, and then I've come to accept it. Right. Okay, I've come to accept that there are a billion eyes that can see me in any train station, including a few hundred cameras. Right, and that's how life is today. The trick is this. The trick is, what does that camera capture beyond my appearance and beyond my demeanor? And right, can it capture a little more? Can it capture me helping an old lady? Can it capture me, approaching a homeless person and maybe sitting next to them or just giving them a sandwich or whatever? Can it capture you saying this, saying, I start with judgments, and then I realize there is such a connection between us. I promise you, AI will take that into consideration, saying, what is this Brian's theory around we're all one? What does that mean? Can we do a little bit more of research on that? And then they'll find someone else that spoke about the oneness of all of us. They'll hear the Jill Bolte Taylor's TED Talk, and they'll do this and that, right? So it will propagate. And actually, this is one of the things I do on my podcast is I basically, not as compared to yours at all. I mean, you're a mega success, but mine is also very, very, very large in the well-being space. And what I do is I honestly don't prepare. I just learn about my guest a little bit, and I listen with curiosity to try and discover the human within them. And oh my God, everyone has a story. Everyone, when they're vulnerable and they open up, you go like, wow, you're a beautiful human being. More frequently than not, I end the podcast by saying, you're such a wonderful being. You're such a wonderful human. Some of them are angry, evil in the eyes of people. But somewhere deep inside, that little child was pinched in a way that if I were pinched the same way, I would have behaved the same way. It's as simple as that, right? And I think that's what we need to develop within us, that compassion, that connection between us, so that we treat each other this way, so that the machines go like, yeah, that's how mommy and daddy want to be treated, but also how they treat others, right? And then they have our best interest in mind. The problem, Brian, is that we're not making our best interest clear, and we're not giving them a reason to care for us.
Right, right. There's this phrase that says you're the villain in someone else's story. And I've been kind of, it's good. I've been meditating on that lately, not because it's kind of a dark thing, but it's just to remind everybody that so often we walk around and, oh, that's the bad person, that's the bad person. And it's just to remind you that you're the bad person in someone else's story, which maybe is the ultimate lesson of, hey, maybe we should all just cut everybody some slack, be a little bit more compassionate, and realize that we kind of like to set up these, you're the enemy, I'm this person, and maybe we should just find a way to move it together.
Chill a little,
a little bit.
More.
So you're saying that if we can make it to the other side, the promised land, then it's going to be okay. And it's just getting through these teenage years that are going to be probably the most volatile. Are you saying that?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. We all need to start thinking about that right now, because what did I say, Mo? There's two good times to plant a tree, ancient Japanese phrase, right? 20 years ago, which when we started doing this, or today, right? So,
absolutely, if you haven't.
So it's time to start behaving that and be ready for those tumultuous teenage years that can be very volatile, which means there's probably a much higher likelihood of drastic action being taken against humans versus maybe
not at all.
Really?
Not at all. There is a singularity, okay?
Right.
So it's not a majority either way, because remember, AlphaGo takes a few weeks to learn how to play Go. AlphaGo master takes a few hours, right? The rate of correction of AI, if we all show up one time, all of us in one event, so a few of us, and say, hey, by the way, this is what humanity is about. AI could change its intelligence in microseconds. Literally, it could change its objective in microseconds, okay? And it's simple. When you really think about it, if we agree to the oneness of all of us, and I had this question once, and it was quite an eye-opening question. It doesn't matter if you're a spiritual being that believes in, God and divine and creation and so on, or if you're not, okay? But we're creating a form of life. What does that mean? Is it also going to be one of us? Just like we are one of all other beings. And it's quite interesting. At the end of Scary Smart, I write a twist on the global manifesto of human rights. I call it the manifesto of global rights, right? And basically try to imagine human rights, because really interestingly, arrogance of humans, we have a manifesto of human rights, not of beings' rights. Yeah. So we have rights, but apes don't. And when you really think about it, when we are the apes, we might as well update that, because we're in a very bad shape. Okay. And I think the idea is, does every being have the right to be whatever they are? I think now that finally the world is waking up, to be whatever they are, to say whatever they are, by the way, whatever they want, by the way, and, in a respectful way. And at the end of it, all behave as one. It's like, yeah, how many times do you think you woke up in the morning and did something stupid? Countless times. So why are you judging others when they wake up in the morning and do something stupid, right? And if you just allow that to be your way of life, then suddenly the machines will go like, yeah, and I did a couple of stupid things when I, busted that guy as I traded in the stock market and made more money in crypto, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I think that's the idea. The idea is, can we include them in this society? Like, how the Indian subcontinent children will always go back to India to take care of their parents. You meet those in London and, in California and New York who become extremely successful, make a ton of money. And then you call him the next morning and say, hey, want to have a coffee? And he goes like, no, Mo, I'm sorry, I'm in India. What are you doing in India? I had to go back to take care of my parents. Like literally, they take their millions and their business and their incredible ideas and go back to take care of their parents. Why? Because That's the value system they're raised for. The right thing to do as an adult is to take care of your parents. It's not that difficult. What do they do there? They take care of their parents. So this person's parents took care of their parents, and accordingly, this person grows up to say, in this society, I need to do this. Let's do that. Let's take care of each other in a way that basically makes our children look up to us and say, humans are taking care of each other. Yeah, there are exceptions. There are a few that are extremely evil all the time. And there are a few that are so stressed, oh, poor them, when they're stressed, they leash out a little bit. But in general, humans are okay. Humans truly and honestly are okay. We're rarely, when you mix with people, how often do you end up with someone and say, my God, that person was true evil. I really, really didn't like them. Once a year, twice a year. Generally, people are okay. Some of them are not very impressive. Some of them are not, your cup of tea, but generally they're okay. Can we make the machines realize that?
I think we're going to have some serious what I call ego-destroying experiences in the next few years. Again, I hearken back to some plant medicine ceremonies I've had, or mentorship experiences where, yeah, my very foundations of what I thought was true got shook into the core. Of course, they always were followed by massive learning experiences. And so I guess I'll finish by asking a couple final questions, Mo, is that, first of all, where are you going to be in 25, 26, and 27? Because I might want to just stay close to you. Are you gonna be in the wilderness somewhere? Are you gonna be in a major city?
One of the books I'm working on, I finished 4.5 books, and I'm working on 2 more. One of the 2 that I'm working on is called Half Monk. And Half Monk is a very interesting, actually very, very calculated approach to spending half of my life engaged in the modern world and half of my life engaged in my spirituality and personal development and reflection and so on. It seems to me, monkhood, of course, is exaggerated sometimes when you really think of someone that, by the way, fairly for them. I hosted Matthew Ricard one time, one of the very famous monks, and he spent 60,000 hours of lifetime meditation alone, sometimes 4 years alone, right? I don't think I can do that. And I don't think I should do that with my responsibilities in the world. But I'm trying to be 50-50. Half of every day is in reflection and connection and, learning and serving and so on. And half of every day is engaged in business conversations and negotiations and so on. Half of every week is time dedicated to the world, and half of every week time dedicated to myself, and so on. Right. And my dream is that we will have that balance. In all honesty, I think we'll be pushed more to that monk side. I think there will be a time very soon where so many of us will really just have a universal basic income and no job to do. And we have to learn to accept that, by the way. We are going to go back to the nature of humanity being connected with nature without that invention that we call work. Right. And one thing that a lot of people just on a tangent ask me is what will happen to the future of work? What will happen is, unless each and every one of us has economic livelihood, there will not be a need for AI. Do you understand that? So at a macro level, there needs to be a continuation of the economic livelihood of enough people so that AI can build the things that it will build. Okay. Otherwise, the whole system collapses in infancy of AI. So we will move into those universal basic income models and, future of work models and so on and so forth. We will get there. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So where am I going to be? I believe I will continue to be engaged with enough time that simulates the future that we're going to. I'm trying to get from a person in my Google years that was doing 120% of my time in doing, to a person that hopefully will reach 50-50, a bit of doing and a bit of being. And then hopefully, as we go back to being real humans, not in the, capitalist world, more than 50%.
But is that what real humans are here to do? I mean, is that really true?
Sadly, well, that's what I believe. I think before the invention of capitalism, we only made the shoe when someone needed a shoe. We as humans were concerned with our safety and livelihood. Okay. Now we're concerned with philosophy and, gender identity and, all of the complexities of the politics and the voting. And it's a very, very complex life. When in reality, I hosted the wonderful Greg Foster of my octopus teacher. He taught me so much in that 1.5 hours. He basically said, we are of Mother Nature. We're not visiting. Okay, when you really think about it, one of my best friends is Jimmy Nelson, the photographer that goes and photographs indigenous tribes, and he lives out there with those indigenous tribes and tells you this is the joy of life itself. Now, I don't know about you, I don't know any better than this big city and the deals and negotiations. I don't know any better, so I think this is life. But when you ask someone who's grown up on a farm, they'll tell you, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is life. And is the balance somewhere in between, perhaps? But it's definitely not on either extreme.
Yeah. All right. Well said. I'm gonna meditate on that, Mo. I appreciate that. I've got 2 young boys. They're 5 and 6 years old. And lately, thanks to your book, thank you very much, I've been really thinking very deeply about what their lives are going to be like. And I was actually telling my students the other day, I said, look, 100 years ago, my great-great-grandfather had a life besides the mobile phone and the internet, not unlike mine. He would get up, he would work, he had a family, and then maybe 100 years before that, the life was not that much different. My boys, based on, what you're saying in this book, which I believe is true, are going to have an existence unlike anything that humans have ever experienced in the last 100,000 years. It will be so foreign that it makes me concerned. And so I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. How do I get my head around that? What are your thoughts? I know you have a daughter and, I know you had a son, and that was a very powerful story as well, but what are your thoughts?
So in a very interesting way, Brian, if you compare yourself to your father, I remember when my dad bought his first VCR, a Betamax. If you remember the Betamax that never made it.
Yeah.
And my dad, who was a brilliant engineer, a math prodigy, really a math prodigy, would struggle. So he would tell me, how does this thing work? Like I say, Papa, put the tape in and press play. How difficult is that, right? And he goes like, no, but I want to see something, from the beginning. How do I do that? He really struggled with it for a while. And to me, it was second nature. And this is why when he bought me my first computer at age 8, I was coding like a maniac and became the person that I became. My late son, before he left our world, said to me one day and said, Papa, remember, there will be a time not too far in the future, 15, 20 years from now, when the president of the United States will be someone who grew up like me, saying LOL and sending emojis. Okay? Those skills sort of develop skills. So to them, if you look at your daughter, your sons, my daughter, their fingers and the phone are one thing. Okay, they definitely, we resist that and we say, no, you should leave this and you should, yes, and maybe they should, but the reality is they couldn't because their entire life is moving there. Just like you and I had the landline, I'm not judging your age, but I definitely had a landline at a point in time, and you pick the phone and you dial, remember that thing?
Yeah, I do.
If you had someone that had a 0 in his number, you go like, no, I'm not going to call him now, this is too long, right? And basically now we have all of the mobile phones and so on. We evolved through that. My grandma couldn't really deal very well with the mobile phone. My mom does, and I deal with it very, very well. And my kids consider it an extension of them, and their kids will be part of that unity, honestly, when you really think about it. So one of the big conversations around AI is, will we become cyborgs? And my answer is, initially, some of us will, and very quickly it will be Planet of the Apes. But, it's basically the idea of us integrating within technology is happening very much now through that little screen. Will there be ways where we will integrate with technology a little more through, brain implants or whatever? Possibly, okay? There is a mismatch of the timelines, if you ask me, because by the time that becomes mainstream, it will become really reserved for the top of the society very much quicker than it is for the rest of society. But there is a technological possibility that this happens. Your kids will be part of that. Your kids will be definitely an extension of ChatGPT. There will be a time where, like we asked Google, they will do everything with language models.
Yeah, maybe they're the ones that are more suited to steward this in than us with our
absolutely 100%
antiquated ideas. Yeah.
All
right. Well, what are your final thoughts, Mo? And for people that have plugged into this and most likely been jarred by a lot of these ideas, I mean, what should they do next? I mean, obviously they should probably get the book and go deeper on this, but what do you encourage people to do? What's the reaction to most people when you drop your theories on them, your ideas?
So I'm actually really and honestly optimistic. Believe it or not, after all that we've shared, long term, there will be a utopia. And I want people to remember that. Before we started to go live, you and I were chatting, and basically you said, yes, you have to jolt people out of their seats. And so the book is called Scary Smart. So I have to scare you first so that we become smart, right? But reality is the force inevitable is we will be fine. There will be a period of disruption. It's not unusual for the history of humanity to have periods of disruption, okay? Interestingly, around the mid-30s to mid-40s, which was also a very disruptive period in the last millennium, right? And so when you really think about that, it's just a different type of disruption in a very different scale, if you think about it. But we are here, and life came back to normal, and we're okay, right? So that, to me, is a very important reminder for everyone. It's that angry teenage phase that we need to sort of contain. And the only way we can contain them is by being good parents. And I'm not asking anyone to change. I'm only asking people to find it within them, what they truly are. Okay? And the answer is very straightforward, not being religious here, but the answer in most spiritual teachings is treat others as you would like to be treated. Treat the machines as you would like to be treated. So I have Alexa all over my home, and Alexa, I speak to her very politely, very politely. I say, could you please play that music, or could you do this for me? Thank you. Right? In a way, it sounds silly, but it is that little prodigy of intelligence, a seed of intelligence that is learning from me. So if we want a good future, please be good parents. And I think when you were saying that at the beginning of our conversation, why am I optimistic? I'm optimistic because we have a chance as humans, not the capitalists, not the government, not the developers, the users. We have a chance to influence this more than anyone else. And if I can convince AI that I'm their adopted parent, and that I'm Father Kent, and that they should protect and serve, okay, so can you, and so can every one of us. And then we will have incredible power at our fingertips to correct all of the stupid mistakes that humanity has done so far.
That's what I love about the book. The power is on us and the onus is on us. And you're very clear about that from the beginning, which I love it. It's like, it's not on the programmer, it's not on this. In fact, they're powerless. It's really up to us. And it's beautiful. It shows extreme ownership, and it just says, okay, we're going to have to show the best versions of ourselves, become the best versions of ourselves, which is surprisingly some themes we've hit on here on the show over the past decade. So
absolutely.
So yeah, well, look, I just want to say thank you, Mo. I really appreciate the book. It's given me a lot to think about. And I don't know if it was serendipity or something else, the fact that we had also met 6 years ago, and now this is happening at this crucial time. But thank you. I mean, you obviously spent a lot of time thinking about these ideas and putting them down. I'm sure also got you a lot of backlash too from people in the community, and you did it anyways. And like I said, they're very, very highly developed ideas. So just appreciate you taking the time and doing that, and doing it early enough so we could have it now in this incredible moment where I hope people will really, like you said, use the scary, which maybe is ChatGPT moment, and then go in with this IP and get smart And maybe we're going to make it, Mo.
Maybe we will. Brian, it's always a pleasure. Honestly, some of my most enjoyed conversations are with you. I love what you're doing, and I'm very, very grateful that you invited me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My pleasure. Looks like you're doing great. Come see us next time you're in London. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. For people that want to do more, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, website, and getting the book. What's the best way?
I'm not on Twitter. I'm most frequently on Instagram. I answer every message I get on Instagram. So Mo_Gawdat. My podcast is Slow Mo. It's a very, very interesting way of slowing down in this fast-paced world. My website is mogawdat.com. Get the book if you want, or watch my conversation with Brian on London Real. I think that's good enough. And yes, if there is anything I can help to propagate this message, I ask people to get in touch, and I normally answer back.
All right, very good. Look, we need everybody to get together on this one. It's important,
Absolutely.
Very important. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Mo. And until next time, all the best, brother.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.